Welcome to composition tutorial number 2. Today we will be discussing scale degrees, types of scales or modes, and basic chords or harmonies that you will be using throughout your entire compositional journey. You may be wondering to yourself, well, what is a scale in terms of music? Well, this is a scale. And so is this one. And this one. You might be seeing a pattern here. A scale is a series of notes that either goes up or goes down in terms of pitch. There are many different types of scales, but the ones we will be focused on as for right now are the major and minor scales. Now, the major scale is usually the type of happy scale that you characterize as, and it goes as follows. You start on your root note, or the first note of the scale, and you go up by a whole step, then another whole step, then you go up by a half step, then another whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and finally a half step returning to your original root note. But this time it is an octave above. If you have no idea what a whole step or half step are or an octave, please check out the previous video for further information. Now, let's get into the minor scales. The minor scales, in my opinion, are far more interesting than the major counterpart. First off, there are 3 types we will be discussing in this video. We have the natural minor scale, the harmonic minor scale, and finally, the melodic minor scale. These 3 have different half-step and whole-step patterns from each other as well as the major scale, so we will be discussing each one separately. The first one we will be discussing is the natural minor scale. The natural minor scale goes as follows. You start on the root note, then you go up by one whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, then a whole step, and a half step, a whole step, and finally another whole step, returning home to your root note. This is the same pattern when descending, although it's reversed. Now, the harmonic minor scale is a little bit different. You start on your root note, then you progress as normal. But when you reach the 6th note, instead of going up a whole step, you have to add a half step to the interval. This means that it is now a minor third. If you do not know what that is, please check out the previous video. Now, this means that between the 7th and final note of the scale, or returning home, you will, instead of having a whole step, you will have a half step. Now, the melodic minor scale is the most interesting or unique out of all these other scales. The major, natural, and harmonic minor scales are the same when ascending and descending, but the melodic minor scale is a bit different. It actually changes the pitches depending on whether you're going up or going down. Now, when you are going up, the whole step, half step pattern goes like this. You start on the root note, then you go up by one whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, then a whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and finally a half step rounding out your journey home. An easy way to remember this is that this is basically just a major scale, but except the 3rd note of the scale is moved down by one semitone or half step. Going downwards, the melodic minor scale becomes practically identical to the natural minor scale. There is essentially no difference. This is what makes the melodic minor so unique and therefore so hard to identify for beginners, because its descending variant is often confused for the natural minor. For composers, it is hard to use this because it is hard to identify as well. If you want to make it as clear as possible that you are intending to use the melodic minor scale, you must put the ascending and descending versions next to each other. Now, the minor scale is often seen as more dramatic or sad than a major scale. This makes it a good fit for more somber pieces or maybe even more angry ones that don't feature a wide array of positive emotions. One example of this is the Waltz in C sharp minor or the Moonlight Sonata. Both of these feature a minor scale as their tonal center. A tonal center is a scale or mode, these are two are interchangeable by the way, that your piece is based around. Of course, we have different types of scales other than major and minor, such as octatonic, pentatonic, Dorian, and all that other jazz. But for the purpose of this video, we will not be needing them. You might also be confused by the Roman numerals that are currently displayed on screen. These are called scale degrees, and they're what we use in order to count how far along the scale we are. Each of these scale degrees have different names. The first note, or the first scale degree, is called the tonic, or the root position. This is because it is the tonal center in which the entire scale is based around. Moving up one whole step, we have the supertonic. This is called this because it is one whole step above the tonic, and super means above. Moving up again, we have the mediant. The mediant is called this because it is halfway in between the two most important scale degrees in the entire scale, the tonic and the dominant, or the fifth scale degree. Going below the dominant, we have the subdominant. Now, this is not because it is one whole step below the dominant. This is because the fourth scale degree, if you go down 5 whole steps, you will land on that scale degree. Or, it is the same interval from the tonic as the dominant is, just go down instead of going up. Now, above the tonic is the submediant. The submediant is called this is because if you go down the same interval as you go up to get to the mediant, you will reach this note. The seventh scale degree depends on what kind of scale it is. If it is a major scale, it is called a leading tone, because it is only a half step below the tonic. This creates a strong attraction that pulls your ear towards wanting to go to C, in this case if you're going from B. If you're in a minor scale, then the leading tone will be a whole step apart. Therefore, instead of calling it a leading tone, we will call it a subtonic. In this case, the reasoning is because this is a whole step below the tonic. Let's talk about chords. If you're a guitar player, you should instantly know what I refer to. But for those who aren't, chords are basically just stackings of any pattern of notes. This pattern can be anything. But the most basic form is the triad. The triad is formed by taking the tonic, the mediant, and the dominant from any major or minor scale. Taking from a major scale will form a major triad. Taking from a minor scale will form a minor triad. Now, if we take the minor triad and move the dominant down by 1/2 step, we will have created the diminished triad. The diminished triad sounds very creepy, off-putting, and is oftentimes used in a lot of horror tracks. If we take the major scale or triad and move the dominant up by 1/2 step, we will have created the augmented triad. The augmented triad also sounds similarly off-putting, but it also gives off an ethereal vibe. These chords form what we call harmony, or the backbone of any music that we have. They allow us to identify what scale that the piece is currently using. And they also allow you to shift scales or modes. We can use these chords to help us create the identity of our piece. They are the most fundamental and most important part of composition. Thank you for watching this composition tutorial. I hope to see you next week, where we discuss chords, intervals, voices, voice leading rules, harmony, cadences, as well as basic counterpoint.